All right, let's get into it. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on a computer that was totally misunderstood, way underestimated, and as it turns out, a secret genius hiding in plain sight.
I mean, of course you have, right? It's a total icon, a machine that pretty much defined a generation of home computing and gaming. It's a name that everybody who loves retro tech knows.
But what if I told you the C64 had a sibling? One that Commodore released right around the same time, but it was the complete opposite. A machine that got dismissed almost the second it hit the shelves.
Yeah, let's talk about the Commodore Plus 4. It came out in 1984, and it's one of the most fascinating missed opportunities in computer history. This was a machine with a totally different mission.
So what was the big idea here? Well, Commodore wanted the Plus/4 to be the serious computer, the one that could bridge that gap between your home and the office. Instead of games, its main selling point was a built-in software suite. We're talking a word processor, a spreadsheet, and a database, all loaded right there on the ROM. You could just turn it on and be ready to work instantly. But, and this is a big but, that focus on productivity came at a cost. A really steep cost that the massive gaming community back in the 80s was just not willing to pay.
This slide really just lays it all out. To make it a business machine, Commodore cut the features that gamers absolutely loved. They got rid of the hardware sprites that made animation so easy on the C64. And they replaced that legendary SID sound chip with a much simpler one called TED. But look a little closer. In exchange, they gave it a much faster processor and a way bigger color palette.
For a gamer in 1984, that was pretty much the end of the conversation. No sprites, no SID chip. It was immediately written off. People saw it as incompatible, inferior, just a poor substitute for the gaming beast that was the C64. It really looked like a total flop.
But hang on, that is not where the story ends. Not even close. Because what the mainstream market saw as a weakness, a small group of really creative programmers saw as a challenge. And you know what? An opportunity. The Plus 4 had some serious power hiding just under the surface.
Let's just start with this number, 121. What in the world does that mean?
Well, that's the Plus 4's color palette. While the C64 was stuck with just 16 colors, the Plus 4 could display a whopping 121. This gave programmers this incredible artistic tool that its famous older brother just couldn't touch.
And right here, this is the machine's real secret weapon, Commodore Basic 3.5. See, on the C64, programmers had to use these super cryptic poke commands just to poke around in memory and draw a single dot on the screen. The Plus 4, it had dedicated, easy-to-use commands for graphics and sound built right in. For hobbyists and people just learning to code, it was an absolute dream.
And just look at how simple programming could be. To create a cool visual effect like this neon tunnel, you literally just tell the computer you want a graphics screen, tell it to pick a random color, and then tell it to draw a circle. That's it. Add a simple sound command, and boom, you've just made a really impressive audio-visual demo in just a few lines of code. For its time, this was absolutely revolutionary.
So okay, it was easier to program and it had way more colors, but could it actually run great games without those crucial hardware sprites? Well, a few genius developers decided to prove that yes, it absolutely could.
Let's take the game Mercenary. Reviews at the time called it a technical marvel, and for really good reason. This was a game that, on paper, should have been impossible on this hardware.
So how'd they pull it off? That's the key. Mercenary was this huge open-world game with 3D vector graphics. The developers just completely ignored the fact that it didn't have sprites. Instead, they leaned into the Plus 4's real strength, its faster CPU. This let them render that 3D world so much more smoothly than the C64, creating this incredible feeling of actual flight.
And then you've got Void Runner. Critics describe this one as pure adrenaline that moves at a blistering pace. This was a full-on action game, exactly the kind of thing the Plus/4 was supposedly terrible at.
So the legendary developer Jeff Minter, he was one of the few who actually loved the Plus 4. He used that faster processor to create this wild, psychedelic shooter that was just way faster than almost anything you could find on the C64. It was definitive proof that with some clever coding, the Plus 4 could deliver some amazing arcade action.
And what about all those amazing colors? Well, a game called Treasure Island put them to absolutely perfect use. The whole idea was to create visuals that were just impossible on other 8-bit computers.
The developers of Treasure Island basically built their own sprite system entirely in software.
By combining high-res graphics with that incredible 121-color palette, they created these beautifully detailed characters and lush, vibrant backgrounds that just made the game a total visual standout.
So even though the Plus/4 was a commercial failure, it ended up finding a whole different kind of success. Its story didn't end in the 1980s. Nope, that was just the beginning of its second life.
And believe it or not, this machine has a thriving community today. There's this dedicated demo scene, a community of coders and artists who treat the Plus4's limitations as a creative puzzle. They're constantly pushing its unique hardware to create these stunning audio-visual demos that people would have thought were impossible back in the day.
And that's really the big takeaway here, isn't it? The story of the Plus/4 is the ultimate underdog tale. It just proves that sometimes the most interesting stuff happens not when you have all the tools in the world, but when you have to get clever and creative with the tools you've actually got.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? How many other pieces of forgotten technology are just sitting out there waiting for someone to take a second look and find their own hidden genius?